So I've had this channel for a year this month, and I just realized that I have not done a video about the silent treatment. And I think this is a really important topic to go over, so this is long overdue. And in this video, I want to specifically talk about what the silent treatment is and why I consider it abuse and how it differs from somebody that just doesn't feel like talking. So what the silent treatment is and what it's not. And I also want to talk about how narcissists in particular will use the silent treatment in ways that we will misperceive it. They will use it to confuse us. So I want to dig into that a little bit and explain what the silent treatment actually means versus what we may think it means in the moment. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. So I first want to tell a quick story about an experience I had that may be confused for the silent treatment, but is not. A long time ago, I won't even tell you how long ago so that you can't figure out how old I am, but I was in my early 20s and I was working with a guy that was a friend, and a new CD, this is back when there were CDs, came out, and he was really excited, and it was a band we both liked, and he brought this brand new CD into the store we worked at, and I touched it. I don't know, I was looking at it, and I accidentally put a tiny little scratch on the CD, and it wasn't like big enough to make it so that you couldn't listen to the CD, but it was a scratch nonetheless on his brand new CD. And this guy in particular was very particular about keeping his CDs pristine. So if I was going to accidentally scratch a friend's CD, this was the wrong guy to accidentally scratch a CD for. Now, this was a really nice guy. He was normally very reasonable, very thoughtful. I really liked him, but he was very upset. And I tried to apologize. I'm so sorry, I scratched your CD. And I remember he kind of just looked off to the side and he said, I just can't talk about this right now. I'm really upset. So just give me some space. I can't talk about this. And he just he couldn't talk to me, and he didn't want to say anything. And I guess, he felt like if he did talk to me, he would just get really upset. I think this story is a really good example of what the silent treatment is not. This story is an example of somebody that recognizes that he's too upset to try to talk. And so in the interest of preserving the relationship, he decides to communicate that he's not ready to talk right now. For a guy in his early 20s, looking back, this was actually a very healthy, mature way to handle a situation in which he was genuinely very upset. And I did buy him a new CD. I went out that night and bought another one and brought it into work the next day, so he forgave me. All was well. And I tell this story because I see a lot, when people talk online about the silent treatment, I see a lot of people interjecting this kind of confusion. Like, well, what if I just don't feel like talking? Well, what if I'm just too upset to say anything? And I just want to say to those people, that's not the silent treatment. So what is the silent treatment? Let's get into that. First of all, the silent treatment is definitely not done in the interest of the relationship, in the interest of preserving the relationship, like what my friend was doing when he told me he couldn't talk to me. He was doing that so that he wouldn't say something that he might regret later. The silent treatment is done out of spite. It's done to punish. The silent treatment is kind of an action in and of itself, meant to punish and harm, whereas the example I just gave about my friend is the lack of action. It's the holding back of actions that you don't want to take. When somebody is using the silent treatment against you, there's not going to be a communication. There's not going to be an explanation of, hey, I just can't talk to you right now. Instead, there's going to be a sense of unease and a sense of confusion. I know for me, when the silent treatment's been used against me, there's almost always a little bit of doubt, like, is this person upset with me? Am I imagining things? Are they giving me the silent treatment, or am I just making a big deal out of nothing? And it can range. I know I've been in situations where somebody is just sulking, just has a sour look on their face. They just seem upset. And I'll sit and blame myself and question myself and rack my memory. Did I do something? What did I do? Why are they upset? Are they upset with me? And being a little too intimidated and afraid to ask. Or it doesn't have to be that pronounced. It could be something as simple as just saying good morning to somebody and having them just kind of look right through you and not respond. It's disorienting because you know that if the shoe was on the other foot, you would definitely say something back. You would acknowledge somebody saying good morning to you. And it really kind of, at least for me, kind of hits those panic buttons of, is something wrong? Is this person upset, or did they not hear me? And I should say that those panic buttons are buttons that I've worked very hard to deactivate. The silent treatment is done to punish, as I mentioned earlier, and it's done to communicate superiority. It's a message of, I'll talk to you when I feel like talking to you. You can't just say good morning to me and expect me to say good morning back if I don't feel like saying good morning. Maybe I'm not ready to say good morning. Speak when spoken to. It's not your place to instigate conversation. Or another purpose of the silent treatment, and this is specifically how narcissists typically will use it. So these examples are a little more severe. I guess I should say that almost anybody is capable of using the silent treatment. It's just a very immature way to handle upset with somebody else. So you don't have to necessarily be a pathological narcissist to use the silent treatment against somebody. However, pathological narcissists take it to certain extremes that most people won't take it to. Most people that are just maybe not handling the situation very well, that are using the silent treatment, aren't going to do it for the reasons that a pathological narcissist would, although it is still kind of the same thing. So anyway, back to what I was saying, a pathological narcissist will also use the silent treatment to evoke a reaction from the person that they're using the silent treatment against. And this is not something that a quote normal person would use the silent treatment for, because this is a way to use the silent treatment that wasn't necessarily triggered by anything that you did. Narcissists will use the silent treatment against you if they're bored. So it creates the illusion that you must have done something bad, so you better figure it out. And it can make you very panicky, like I was saying earlier, those little panic buttons. It can make you nervous, it can make you feel intimidated, and it can make you feel very confused. And you assume that the person that's using the silent treatment against you is upset about something. But what's really sinister about the way that some narcissists will use the silent treatment is that they don't necessarily have to be upset. They seem upset. Of course, they're always upset, but they're not especially upset. They're probably bored, and they're probably just trying to get a reaction out of you. It's really kind of thrilling in a sick kind of way. It's kind of thrilling for them to just sit there and realize that all they have to do is just sit there and ignore you, just stare ahead with kind of an angry look on their face, and you will turn yourself in circles inside out trying to figure out what's wrong and trying to make them happy. It's a real power trip. And it really removes it very far from what I talked about in the beginning about somebody that just legitimately needs some time to reflect on something, that just really doesn't feel like talking right now. That is the assertion of boundaries. That's completely different from using the silent treatment to punish and manipulate someone for your own entertainment. The silent treatment is meant to upset you. It's meant to get a reaction, and narcissists will do it to reassure themselves that they're still in control, that you're still willing to bend yourself into a pretzel trying to figure out why they're upset, when really they're not any more upset than they usually are. It's natural and logical to assume that somebody that is using the silent treatment against you is upset about you about something. So you're sitting there spinning your wheels trying to figure out what's wrong and weighing whether or not it's worth asking, when in reality, you didn't do anything wrong. And really, the silent treatment, it kind of upsets me now when I look back at how heavily I allowed the silent treatment to manipulate me, how much control I allowed it to have of my emotions, because the silent treatment really isn't anything. It's somebody not doing anything, somebody that's just sitting on the couch. And I want to make this point. They're sitting on the couch, they probably have an angry face, and they're likely doing that on purpose because they know how quickly you're going to internalize it and how quickly you're going to go into this mode of, I need to fix this, I need to figure out what's wrong, I need to figure out what I did, and I need to do something about this. If you're dealing with a reasonable person and you are in a healthy, balanced state, when you see that person sitting somewhere looking upset, your first reaction really shouldn't be to assume that you must have done something wrong. And I know this is something I had to work on for a long time, is not to feel this responsibility for everybody else's feelings, not to walk into a room and see somebody that I'm close to looking upset, kind of ignoring me, and assuming that I must be responsible for that somehow. If somebody is sitting there looking upset and they're not communicating with you, they're not saying anything, they're not reaching out, they're not trying to explain anything, they're just letting you sit there and wonder what's wrong, that's really not your problem. That's not your place to worry about. If somebody's really that upset with you, it's up to them. The burden is on them to say something to you, to communicate, to reach out. It's not your job to try to read someone's mind. And to give you some specific examples of how deeply I let this affect me, and also kind of the crappy ways that this was done on purpose to mess with me. In one relationship I was in, this was done to me quite often, where this person would sit just like bringing a rain cloud into the room, just grumpy, just very intimidating. This person had a very big, heavy presence and just seemed really upset all evening. And I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I felt very nervous. I was weighing whether or not I should ask if something was wrong. I was kind of waiting to see if this person would bring something up. I mean, I was really living in a state of fear and nervousness. And I remember there were a few times where I would get the nerve up to ask, is something wrong? Are you okay? And this person would look at me really intensely and say, yeah, why? Are you okay? And I look back and I wish that I could really convey how unnerving that really was when this was being said to me, because it's like this person knowingly was sitting there working me up by doing and saying nothing, just sitting there intimidating me with a very ornery presence, and then flipping the whole thing around on me if I tried to bring anything up, if I tried to communicate, by suggesting that I'm the one that must not be okay. I must be imagining things. And that was really unsettling, and it just kind of left me really confused, because I knew that there was no way this person was giving off this kind of energy for no reason. So looking back, I realized that this was really all done just to mess with me, just to make me feel uncomfortable, just to make this person feel in control and powerful. But if I could go back to that moment, if I could go back to those moments that was happening to me, I would know now just to ignore it. If somebody doesn't want to talk to me about why they're upset, it's not my problem. I don't need to sit and worry about something that really isn't even happening. Now, a little later in my life, I was in a different relationship with somebody else who was extremely narcissistic and would give me the silent treatment all the time. And this was a little bit different. The dynamics were a little bit different, but it was very similar in other ways. And this was a relationship in which I finally started to understand what was happening. I finally started to see the patterns for what they were. And the silent treatment was done to me quite a bit in this relationship. And I was always like before, trying to figure out what I did wrong, what was going on, why this person seemed so upset, and how I could fix it. And when I finally understood that what I needed to do was just to ignore somebody that isn't communicating with me, if they're going to ignore me or just say, no, I'm fine, if I try to ask if anything's wrong, then why should I sit and worry about it? And there were a lot of things going on with this particular person. I was at a point where I was completely convinced that this person was doing the silent treatment in order to get a reaction out of me. And it always worked, you know, and it's like this silent little dance. It's really quite insane. But there's one person giving the silent treatment, and there's the other person, me, kind of like panicking and trying to figure out what's wrong and maybe doing some nice things, or maybe trying to think of things that this person wants me to do, and not really confronting the issue, not communicating. And if I ask if something's wrong, being ignored or being told, no, nothing's wrong, but me still trying to figure out what's going on, and me being in kind of a state of frenzy a little bit. I think this particular narcissist took a lot of pleasure in seeing me become distressed, trying to figure out why I was being given the silent treatment. So I finally got to a point at the very end of this relationship where I started ignoring the silent treatment, which is really, there's no reason not to ignore it. If somebody wants to talk, then they should talk to you about something. So it was really quite bizarre when I started just acting like I didn't notice that this person was giving me the silent treatment. I just went about my business as if it wasn't happening. And this person's behavior escalated very quickly, and it became obvious that this person was doing this to get my attention, to work me up, to upset me. Because when I pretended that I did not notice that I was being given the silent treatment, I could see out of the corner of my eye, this person would would leave the room, then we'd come back, and he got to the point where he was actually acting like a child. And I should say this person was like 40 years old. So this wasn't a child, but I remember out of the corner of my eye, he actually started kind of flailing around and looking at his phone like he was trying to ignore me harder than he had ignored me before, because the level at which he was ignoring me wasn't getting the same reaction. And he was actually flailing around like a teenager, like he was doing this with his phone, like he was trying to get my attention by gyrating, like almost like a teenager that wants you to finally ask what's wrong. I don't think I need to apologize for the fact that I actually took a lot of pleasure in watching him work himself up like that and act that way after everything he had put me through up to that point. It was nice to see him get frustrated for a change, but things didn't last very long past that, thank goodness. My point is that the silent treatment had nothing to do with anything that I had done. The silent treatment, when narcissists are engaging in the silent treatment, it's not because you did something wrong, and it's not because you need to do something. It's not because you're not doing enough. It's because they are either bored, or they want to assert their dominance, or they want to assure themselves that they can control your emotions. And when you sit and worry about it and try to figure it out, you feed into that and you encourage them to do it again. You encourage them to use the silent treatment as a method to reassure themselves that everything's fine, that they're in control. I mean, it's a source of supply for them, if you want to call it that. And to address the title of this video, the silent treatment is emotional abuse, I want to talk about how it affects people. Having the silent treatment used against you by somebody that's supposed to be a very important part of your life, somebody that you love, someone that you trust, someone that you rely on for the bulk of your human interaction in this world, it's very emotionally damaging. It's minimizing, it's very hurtful. It's a way to communicate to someone that they don't matter, that they're not even worth looking at or acknowledging, they're not worth wasting breath on. it's a way to make people feel like they have no control over the relationship or control over the ability to communicate in the relationship. It makes people feel small and insignificant and unimportant. And it also causes stress and worry and panic. It's very distracting. It's hard to focus on anything else when you're just wondering why somebody that's so important to you seems to be so upset with you. It can make you feel very alone, very isolated. It's a form of emotional abandonment or emotional rejection, and both of those things can be traumatizing if it's coming from somebody that you rely on, somebody that has a very important emotional meaning to you in your life. You're being rejected and abandoned by somebody that you need to interact with, to have healthy emotional connections with. And it isn't normally acknowledged. So if these things are happening to you, you're being minimized and smushed into this little ball where it's being made clear to you that you don't matter, and you're being abandoned and rejected and all these things, and you're just imagining the whole thing. Usually if you try to say something about it, if you try to communicate, you're being told that, no, I'm fine. Why? Something wrong with you? Or what? I can't just watch TV in peace? What do you mean? No, nothing's wrong. If you've ever experienced somebody that does this to you on a regular basis, I'm sure that you will understand why I consider this emotional abuse, especially when it becomes something that you almost become accustomed to. It really erodes your soul, your sense of self. It makes you wonder if you should blame yourself for what's happening, and it shrinks you down to nothing while really remaining invisible itself, because really the silent treatment is nothing. I think somebody's cutting wood outside. Anyway, I'm about done. I just want to say that nobody does this to people that they care about. Nobody that loves you is going to treat you this way and make you feel this way and stress you out this way. Anyone that does this unknowingly is too immature to be in a relationship with somebody, and anybody that does this on purpose is too cruel. There are lots of people in this world that aren't going to play these kind of games with you, that aren't going to purposefully hurt you for their own entertainment and to feed their own ego. I don't have any patience for people that do this to other people. People that feel the need to use the silent treatment in order to punish others are people that, in my opinion, should really just be alone. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thank you. Bye.